Okay, I have just one rule in speaking, which is never follow Mitt Romney. So this is going to be the part of the school assembly where we transition from the student body president to the class clown. But I hope we have some fun here, and I'm actually really excited to follow someone who has raised his voice in the world and has provided the kind of, and stood for the kind of leadership we need right now. Now, I was here last year at Silicon Slopes, and we talked about leaders who are multipliers, leaders who use their intelligence, their intellect, their know-how in a way that provokes and amplifies intelligence around them. And then we talked about diminishers who seem to suck the life out of the organization. And while this idea of leader as multiplier has resonated with people all around the world, the reality is that too many people are still stuck working for diminishing leaders. Now, sometimes they're the tyrannical, narcissistic, bully kinds of diminishers, but sometimes they're the accidental diminisher, the well-meaning leader, the leader who thinks they're bringing out the best in others. So today, this year, I thought we would talk about how do we deal with the diminishers that are all around us. And for me, this is part of a mission to, I'm not so secretly on a mission to rid the world of bad bosses, which is a pretty big job. But I hope we can do something today to help you rid your world of a bad boss. Not, of course, getting rid of the boss, but how do you get rid of the diminishing effect inside of your organization? Or for some of you who feel really stuck working for diminishers, how do we make work just suck a little bit less for you? That's our goal here today. I want to start with a quick recap of this idea of leader as multiplier, leader as diminisher. I am going to draw upon people who were here last year, or if you've read this book, or if you've worked for someone who was an amazing multiplier, or unfortunately worked for someone who was a diminisher. And what I want to do, we're going to just do some shouting for the next 60 seconds. I want you to think about someone you worked with that brought out the very best in you, someone who is a multiplier. What do these kind of leaders do? And if we could get the house lights up, I'm just going to ask a few of you to just shout out, what is it that multiplier leaders do? They empower, they inspire, they challenge, they trust, they lead, they encourage, they ask good questions, they see genius in others. Okay? Hopefully most of you have had that kind of experience. Okay, now let's talk about your diminishers. Who here has actually worked for someone they considered to be a diminisher? Just go ahead and raise your hand. It has therapeutic value, just doing this, okay? Now, my research shows that the answer to this question of who has actually had an experience working for a diminisher, the answer is just about 100% of us have had this experience. What, on the other hand, did your diminisher do? They belittled, they micromanaged, they took credit, they sucked the life out of you. Did that not just feel good right now to say that? Yeah, you just went right for the jugular on issue. They cause other people to hold back and to play it safe and to operate small, offering only the tamest of ideas. This is really the fundamental difference between these two leaders. Now, when I did this original research, I could see that these leaders were getting less than other people, less than half of the capability of people around them. 48% is what came out of my research. Now, of course, they're paying full price for the resource, but getting only 48% of value. But I found that it doesn't just end there. It's not that they just get less intelligence from people around them. People who are working for diminishing leaders, be they the tyrant types or the accidental diminishers, experience increased stress, lower confidence, lower energy, poorer health, and just general unhappiness. Okay, so if you've worked for one of these diminishing leaders, or if you are in this situation right now, you kind of know the misery, right? But it doesn't end there either. It gets shared, and it creates toxic work environments, and it gets shared to those we live with. And we take home anger and stress and irritability and increased complaining and social withdrawal. So if you are friends with or have lived with someone who's working for a diminishing boss, you know this dynamic. You know that misery for one can end up being misery for all, right? So how do we work and work at our best for someone who's sucking the life out of us, who's bringing the very worst out of us? About a year and a half, I decided to do a deep dive, further research on this to understand what are the very best strategies for dealing with the diminishers around us, be they at work, be they in our community organizations, be they in our church organizations. How do we best deal with diminishers? Now, I'm going to show you what we found in this research. There's a list here. This came out of a survey we did of hundreds of people done on Qualtrics. Thank you to the team at Qualtrics. And what we've got here are the 5 most common responses to diminishers. Now, we're going to have a little bit of a contest. We've got a microphone right here, and I need 5 volunteers, people who want to play in our little mini game show right here. The most important thing you need to know is there is a prize. Okay, now it's not a big prize. There are no cars. It's a book. But anyone who wants a book, come on up. Thank you. We need 5 people. Oh, come on up, and here's what I want you to do. And actually, I want everyone to participate in this.
I'm going to help you here, Liz.
No running, no running. Keep it safe, keep it safe. Come on over. Here's what we want you to do. Would you look at this list of 5, and I'd like everyone to do this, write it down. Only one thing on this list of 5, our most common responses, actually works. Which one is it? Is it confront them, avoid them, quit, comply and lay low, or ignore the diminishing behavior? These are the things that we are doing most often. Ignore the diminishing behavior is the one that seems to work. It's turning down the volume on the diminishing behavior. Now, there's a lot of more strategies. Let me share with you a second list. And the second list are the 5 least effective strategies for dealing with diminishers. What do you notice about these 2 lists? When I was going through the data, it didn't take too long to figure out that they're actually pretty much the same list. The things that we do most often in dealing with diminishers around us are the things that are least effective. But it actually shouldn't surprise us that our strategies for dealing with diminishers are a little bit faulty or feckless, because after all, that's the point, isn't it? That around diminishing leaders, we're not at our best. And when our powers of reasoning are compromised, it follows that our coping strategies will be compromised as well. In fact, many of the things that we're doing around diminishing leaders not only don't fix the problem, they exacerbate the problem. I want to walk us through 2 different cycles, one sort of a downward death cycle of diminishing leaders, and another cycle that reverses that trend. So let's say you work for a micromanaging control freak of a boss who obsesses over the most minute detail and is constantly in your business. That's their behavior. What do you tend to do that follows? Now, on the surface, in public, you may comply. But in private, what are you doing? See, we're judging, and we're judging their behavior to be wrong. And why? Because it is fundamentally wrong. We know it's the wrong kind of leadership for organizations that need to be innovative and agile, but we also judge it to be wrong on a deeper level because it violates for us what is probably our fundamental need, if not God-given right, for self-determination. So in our state of judgment, we criticize. We stop listening. we exclude. And what happens again in review here when you exclude a micromanaging control freak? They double down. They double down. And they're all over you. And now what we have is a standoff between actually two diminishers. The original micromanaging boss, and then you, who has actually joined them in the diminishing, doing the very things that diminishers tend to do. So what if, instead of doing that, what if we responded with the hallmark of multiplier leadership? And if we can go ahead and skip to the next slide, somehow there we go. If we responded with the hallmark of multiplier leadership, which is intellectual curiosity, and instead of judging what they've done to be wrong, deeming them a bad boss, what if we wondered and we asked questions like, I wonder what he's so nervous about. I wonder what she needs from me to feel confident or in control. And what if we responded with inquiry and with maybe a little bit of empathy and wonder? See, as we change our diminishing behavior, they tend to change their behavior back as well. As we extend some respect, we earn respect. As we offer trust, we earn their trust. And now instead of a standoff, you have this collaboration between a micromanaging diminisher who's now maybe a little less of a diminisher, and you who's actually just a little bit more of a multiplier-like leader.